Hello and welcome to The Cosmic Nomad. I'm your host, Bailey Rushlow, and this is a space for the curious and the heart-led, where we explore the human experience through travel, nature, spirituality, and real-life transformation through beautiful conversations. As I discover my way of living what I call an inspired life, I share the practices, stories, and perspectives that have helped guide me back to myself. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to today's episode of The Cosmic Nomad. I'm sitting in my friend's beautiful sunny apartment in Brixton, South London, overlooking gorgeous trees and chimneys and windows full of plants. And I'm just so happy to be here, to be returning to the podcast. I had a few weeks off, which was necessary for me because I was camping and having incredible unplugged offline adventures. And in this episode, I actually want to reflect on the 2 weeks that I've had of disconnection. 1 week camping in the wild highlands of Scotland, and 1 week with a dear friend of mine living the slow van life in our adventures in North Wales. So yeah, this episode is like a love letter to the nervous system rest, to stillness, to slowness, and to all of the quiet ways that the earth speaks when we finally get to listen. And real quick, before we jump in, if you don't already know, I have a Patreon, which is like a cozy little behind the scenes space where I share things that I don't post anywhere else. Every month, I drop guided meditations, a few rituals or practices, audio notes, reflections from my life, a gratitude list. Like, for the price of a cup of coffee, you could be involved in all of that. And it's a really beautiful way to support my work. And yeah, there's a link to my Patreon down in the show notes. I would love to see you over there. All right, let's dive in now. I actually did something kind of different for this episode. So starting out, I pulled an oracle card and I want to read it to you guys. If this resonates with you, amazing, then it's for you. If not, then leave it and keep listening. So let's just take a deep breath, inhale, hold it at the top of the breath, and exhale slowly. Do it with me. Here's what the card says. You are the artist of your life, and your life is a canvas. Take responsibility for your ability to create. Earth is known as a planet of manifestation. Your present moment is based on your past thoughts and beliefs. Your current thoughts determine your future. What kind of life do you want to create for the future? What are you being called to create? Reconnect with your manifesting power and align your thoughts, feelings, and actions with the vibration that matches them. It's never too late to start, and no experience is required. All you need is an open heart and mind and consistent daily action. If you're not sure what you'd like to create, start instead with a feeling of deep gratitude for all that is good in your life right now. State out loud what you're most thankful for. Look for the good in your life, and one thing will be certain: you will find yourself attracting more and more good experiences into your life. This card is inviting you to see your entire life as a canvas, and the picture is completely up to you. Color it with your thoughts and feelings. Create the life that you most long to live. You may also be called to be more creative in your everyday life. What have you been called to create? How can you express yourself more creatively? I love that so much, and I feel that that one was particularly insightful for me to receive, and I thought, you know what? I bet there's someone else out there that would need that encouragement today. So thank you for letting me share that. And I'm curious what resonated with you. So that leads us right into the episode of what do I want to create? What do I want to experience? How do I want to live? And what's been really beautiful about this summer is that I didn't really have a set plan of what I thought would happen. Most of the time in my travels, I've got a lot of things mapped out. You know, there's room for flexibility, but I kind of know the plan. And this time I had like the first few weeks booked and then nothing else. And so this is the first time that I really truly have just been like, whatever flows, flows. And I have found so much freedom in that. And like back in the day, I needed so much structure for my nervous system to feel safe. And that has been such a journey for me to learn that I can feel safe without structure because I trust whatever is going to unfold for me next is in alignment with what's best for me. And when I'm living my life looking for the good and looking for the beautiful things and the gifts that come my way, like literally even the smallest things, like I had a bed to sleep in, I had food in the fridge, I had fresh water from the tap. Like, we forget how important and amazing those things are. And when you live your life from a place of that gratitude, it really shifts everything. And there is nothing like being unplugged, disconnected, no phone signal, in the middle of a beautiful scenic landscape, mountains, ocean, creeks, lakes, rivers, lakes, that makes you remember that more than anything. It's so effortless the way that being in nature reminds you of your truest state of being, which is non-attachment and allowing and evolving, growing. And the world is incredibly overstimulating. Even being in cities sometimes for me is like, whoa, it's too much. Even opening social media sometimes is like, scrolling and having this influx of information and constantly seeing more information than we could ever actually absorb and put into practice. You know, I follow incredible accounts focused on nervous system regulation and you know, generational trauma healing and somatic movement and breath work and mindfulness and like incredible things. And I can absorb and digest like, I don't know, 1% probably of what I actually see on social media. They say that there are 90 million Instagram posts a day. Oh my God. And it feels like we're all just screaming into the void, desiring to be heard, sharing our wisdom and learned experiences and knowledge and passions and creativity. And there's so much noise that most of us can't even engage properly with the creators we would like to engage with, nor do we even see them most of the time because of the algorithm and its mind games. So I love this oracle card because it's like, your life is a canvas. What are you going to do with it? And I feel like this just ties in so well because a lot of times I'll find myself on my phone scrolling or watching reels and just, I look up and it's been an hour. You know, I know you've heard people say this before. It's like, it's a commonly shared experience where we get sucked in to the void of social media. And I'll be the first to tell you that I have made some incredible friends through the online space of Instagram, through the weird dimensional portal that it is. It has been incredible in my life, and I'm very grateful for it. But I do think that there is a fine line between the good things it brings to our life and the distraction and the damage to our mental health, etc. But regardless, there is nothing like a detox from your phone and or social media that will show you its place in your life. What I mean by that is I remember when I was, I think, 20, 21, I decided that I would turn my phone off. And I was like, I don't know if I've ever just turned my phone off, but I kind of want to just turn it off. I was feeling overwhelmed, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to turn it off for, an hour. So I did. I could hardly get through that hour. I nearly had a panic attack because I was like, what if someone needs me? What if something happens and I don't pick up and I don't respond? And I was spinning out. And it made me go, ooh, I don't like that. That's interesting. That response from my physical body that was like, not okay, I couldn't turn my phone on fast enough. And I thought, I need to revisit this. And so I did. And the following week, I turned it off for like 4 or 5 hours. Again, massive struggle. The next week I did it again, 10 hours. The next week I did it again, the whole day. And I found a sweet spot being 24 hours without my phone. So I started to turn it off on Saturday night, put it away in a drawer where I couldn't even see it, out of sight, out of mind, right? And I wouldn't turn it on until either Sunday night or Monday morning. Full 24 hours of no phone and potentially no computer or screens as well was kind of my intention. And holy shit, the difference that I felt in my mind. I felt like I could hear my own thoughts. I felt like I could process my own emotions without running to my phone and without this information overload. And at this time, there weren't even videos and reels or anything like that. It was literally just photos, on social media and just watching people's stories. And I kept that up, doing it one day a week, every week for many years. And I'm really grateful that I found that habit when I did. Once I started traveling, it fell off a little bit more and I found myself on my phone more. And more recently, I've started to do it again. The last few years, I just keep my phone on airplane mode most of the time and turn it on when I need to do stuff. Really like being disconnected. It's like a personal boundary for myself to be like, I'm unavailable, and if you need me, I will get to you tomorrow. I haven't had a really long detox in quite a while. And while I still had my phone on our adventures for navigation and photos and stuff, I really didn't have service like 99% of the time. And it was incredible. And the first day, I felt that like, ooh, I don't have service, feeling of like, what if someone needs me? What if, all those old patterns of like, I need to be available. I need to be reachable. I need updates from people. I don't want to miss out, the FOMO. And then once you get past that first little bit, it's like a fast, right? It's like you get past those first like 2 days and then you feel great. And it was the same thing with the phone. So the first week that I was kind of offline, my partner Philip and I rented a car in Edinburgh, Scotland, and we drove north through the highlands up to this beautiful island called the Isle of Skye. And we wild tent camped the whole time. So we just had our car and a tent and sleeping bags borrowed so graciously from some friends of ours. And it was incredible. Sleeping on the land every night, watching the stars. And it's amazing because at night in the northern hemisphere, that far north, the sun doesn't really go down till like 11 p.m. And then even when it's, quote, down, it's not really down. It's like still looks like sunset until about 4 a.m. And then the sun comes up again. And it's really trippy. So I have an eye mask that like wraps around my head and covers my ears and my eyes. So that was a game changer because otherwise my sleep would have been like kind of fucked. But it was so nourishing. Nourishing is the word that I've been using the most of the last 2 weeks. It was so nourishing to feel like, okay, there's no phone. So what am I going to do? What do I want to do? What's calling to me? Sometimes it was art. Sometimes I pulled out my markers and drew something. Sometimes it was crochet. Sometimes it was just laying in the grass, looking at the clouds, thinking about things. Sometimes it was gathering fresh water from a spring and just listening to birds. Sometimes it was journaling and watching red foxes. Sometimes it was watching little sheep in the highlands play with each other and butt heads and act like they were big tough rams and check in with their mom and make sure they were okay and then go off and keep playing again, and things that just make your heart feel so much. It brought me so passionately back to a place of pure gratitude in my heart for life, for this experience to be human, for this existence, for this land that I got to be on again for the first time in many years. Scotland was the first place that I ever traveled to internationally by myself. I've told the story throughout the podcast in different episodes, so you can listen to that there. I won't retell it, but it was the first place that I fell in love with myself for the first time. And being back there again 6 years later and being able to bring my wonderful partner with me and show him the lands that once held me, that showed me myself, that held up a mirror and said, look, what do you see? And brought me home was truly magic. Throughout the whole trip, we had so many moments of synchronicity, like from getting our rental car and the guy at the counter whose name was Harry, he was like, you know what? I'm just going to upgrade you guys to an even better car for free just because I want to. Like that kind of thing, happening the whole way with people that we met, hitchhiker that we picked up, driving past incredible landscapes that look like they're straight out of Jurassic Park world, whatever, and Lord of the Rings, and I don't know, Harry Potter, like the castles, on the cliff sides, and the lochs that are so deep and mysterious, and the incredible highlands, and the heather is so purple and beautiful right now, and there's so many volcanoes in Scotland too, so getting to climb them, it's incredible. It felt very ancestral. It felt very like a soul journey, and not just a trip somewhere. It was deep. It was profound. There were so many moments of reclaiming old patterns and old versions of myself in the version of myself I am today, and standing true in that, and in my vulnerability, and in my authenticity to the land, There were moments where it felt like time literally stopped. It's like I could feel my inner landscape sync with the outer landscape, and it all just became one. And I think being off your phone and being in nature does that. With enough time, you'll feel that sync of like, whew, where everything just like drops in, and you're like, whoa, I am nature and nature is me and we are one, and separation is an illusion. The trees are my ancestors. The tiny snails and slugs in the grass are my friends, right? It's like, it might sound silly, but I mean that. I mean, like you really feel like no life is too small to be seen as important in the ecosystem of the natural world. All of it plays a part. I sat in the grass in the highlands and I just watched this spider weave her web, catch a mayfly, inject it with like poison, to paralyze it, and then like eat the mayfly. That might sound really, really gross, but I was literally in another world watching this tiny microcosm of life happening at my feet that if I was not actively paying attention to, I would have absolutely missed. I sat there for close to an hour just watching the spider. Like, if you've ever done that, if you've ever just gotten completely lost in nature, you know the magic that I'm talking about. If you haven't, and what I'm saying sounds kind of insane, I highly encourage you to have a little phone detox and go outside. Seriously. It will take time, but like, there's nothing like it. It really, truly is. It's a reclamation of everything that we are and everything we've been told that we're not. You know, we've been sold this idea that humans are like separate from nature. Humans are like at the top of the pyramid, and then under that, there's all like the animals and the earth. I don't see it that way. I see it as like one big spirally circle, and we're all like intermixed in between. Because when I die and my body goes back to the earth, it becomes earth. And it becomes something that plants grow out of and that animals eat. Like, it is a full-on Lion King circle of life moment. And so often in our busy, busy lives of work and kids and meal prepping and gym and hobbies and friends and relationships and, you know, marriage and all the things that we just evolve into in different seasons of our life, we so often become even further disconnected. And then we wonder, why do we have all these health problems, right? Why do we have this epidemic of loneliness and mental health crisis? Why do we feel so isolated and so busy? We're so busy. And it's something about being in nature that there's this line in the Tao Te Ching that I love that says, nature does not hurry, and yet everything is accomplished. I always have felt really inspired by that quote. And also, in a book called Braiding Sweetgrass, which is incredible, highly recommend, she talks about how indigenous peoples around the world typically don't have a word for nature, because that would imply that they saw themselves as separate from it. And that hits too. So being disconnected is truly the way to be the most connected. And I think disconnection is an act of devotion to ourselves. And it's really beautiful because, like I said, the inner landscape of our soul syncs up with the outer landscape of what we're experiencing. We have the opportunity for things to come up in us, to be processed, to be felt. Sometimes it's joy. Sometimes it's immense grief that we didn't even know was there. Sometimes it's memory, like ancestral, or a feeling like I've been here before, or a feeling of resistance. Things are able to come to the surface when we have time to think about them without the constant input or distraction from our phones. Have you ever had that where sometimes you'll be like really deep in thought about something, something's bothering you, or you're processing, you know, emotionally or mentally, whatever, and then you just go, ooh, my phone, and you intentionally sabotage and distract yourself from your process. And then you feel guilty. And, you know, nature is non-judgmental. And she sat with me the last few weeks as different things came to the surface to be seen, recognized, alchemized, moved through, felt. It's interesting how being offline makes you feel more in tune, because it makes space for presence and for subtle cues from your body and from the world. Like, sometimes I'll look outside and I'll be like, oh, it's raining. And then other times when I've been noticing the art of noticing, right? Nature, birds, insects, the clouds. I could have told you it was going to rain an hour before it rained because I watched the language of the nature inform me about its current state of being. And it can tell us so much about ourselves too. And I think that having a break and a rest and a reset from the online world really affects our creativity as artists, as dreamers, as neurodivergent folks, allowing us to come back to life with softness, with clarity, with renewed ideas. I mean, you always hear about artists like taking a break and going to wherever, and being rejuvenated and coming back and creating again. And we were sold this idea of consistent productivity, that's the way, that creating nonstop, making the money, showing up in the job, rising in the ranks, skipping meals and working overtime, and that this is normal, when not a single thing in nature lives that way. Trees have seasons. Animals have patterns. Nothing exists consistently in the same way that we have been sold this idea of that we have to do to show up, to perform. And I look back at seasons of my life when I did ascribe to that, and I worked nonstop, consistently, all the time, couldn't not be working, because if I stopped, what would happen? If I stopped, what would I have to feel? If I stopped, I couldn't imagine it. And so I kept going. And you know what I did? I got sick over and over and over and over. And I watched my mental health decline. And I watched myself develop an autoimmune disorder. And I watched myself develop food sensitivities. And it wasn't until I went to Mexico when I was 24 and I fully rested for the first time in what felt like my life. And I was disconnected, and I was in a new environment, in a new place. It was soft on my nervous system. I have a journal entry from that trip, that first trip that I did to Mexico, that says, I stayed in bed until 12 and I watched Netflix and I journaled and I didn't do anything. And I don't think I've ever written that before. That was what the quote said. First time in my life. So when I speak about this connection to nature, it's not coming from this hippy dippy, oh, you just need to go outside, man. No, it's coming from a place of, I have been there. I have been tied to my desk, unable to stop working, unable to sleep. I couldn't function without stimulation. By 4 to 6 cups of coffee, that was my regular back in the day. I can't even believe it. I have to be really careful with what I ingest into my body. And I don't just mean food or drinks. I mean mentally, physically, emotionally, sexually, because I can be easily overstimulated. And it's when my nervous system starts to get a little wonky and it's like, ooh, we're not okay. There's a lot of things coming at us right now. I'm a very sensory person. All my senses are incredibly active and high. So being around too much noise can make me feel overwhelmed. That's why I wear big headphones a lot of the time, because it helps me not have to engage with the world too much. I also have regular escapes into nature to let my nervous system fully reset. I also love things like eating really nourishing food with great nutritional value to support my body and her energy levels. I also believe in being properly mineralized. Like, I don't think we have the right minerals in our food or water anymore like we should have. So I actually went through minerals and heavy metals testing on my body and figured out ways that I could best support her, because I was incredibly low in some really vital minerals and had no idea, and realized, oh my God, this is playing a huge role into my the overwhelm of my body. And sometimes I literally wouldn't even leave the house for like a few days at a time. Sometimes I need that. Sometimes actually I do enjoy that. But other times it was because I would feel so overstimulated even just going outside. And a lot of what that shows me is that I really needed to work on my nervous system and learn how to regulate her. And I have a whole episode, I think episode 5 is about the nervous system. I actually don't remember. It could be 8. I think it's 8. Anyways, if you're interested in learning more about nervous system regulation, I would highly recommend listening to that episode. There's so much valuable information out there about this, especially on social media. I know I'm like encouraging you to ditch your phone, and then I'm like, go online and do your research. But really, there is so many amazing resources we can work with and utilize and absorb online. And I am a huge fan of that. It's just oftentimes we have information overwhelm and overload. And sometimes that just does more harm than good in the long run, you know? So after my time in Scotland, Philip and I parted ways again, which is so sad. I really dislike being apart. I can do it, you know, but we really are best friends, and it's amazing to do life with him. And I always appreciate when we get to be together and spend time together. And it's really strange to be apart so much because we kind of do everything together. But it's good to have space too, you know, and miss each other and all that it's good for you. But it is a challenge, and I would much rather just be together. But anyways, I left from Scotland on the train down to Liverpool, where I spent a few days recording music videos with my team that lives there. And oh my gosh, it was amazing. We drove around to some gorgeous locations. We had a drone and an amazing camera guy named Chris. And yeah, it was super fun. We laughed a lot. We got some great content and had a really good time doing it. And from there, I left with my friend Lauren on a van life adventure through northern Wales, which, wow, one of my favorite weeks that I've had in a long time. We literally just spent time together. We picked wild blackberries. We drew pictures in the sunshine. We took mushrooms and went to the beach. We hiked a little mountain and had views overlooking the Irish Sea. I actually swam in the sea, which to most people is like, okay, like not a big deal. To me, huge deal, because it was literally an ice bath. And I am incredibly sensitive to the cold, having lived in the tropics for several years. So yeah, it was really a challenge for me to get in the water. But once I did, and your body regulates, it's actually cold therapy, cold exposure is amazing for your nervous system. I felt the resonance in my body when I got out of the water. I felt so calm, at peace, like all of me was in sync with the rest of me. Like it just it was really beautiful experience, and I'll hold on to that feeling. So Lauren and I actually met in 2022. I wanted to go to Stonehenge on the summer solstice, and I was living in Malta at the time. And I wasn't really sure how one gets to Stonehenge because it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. I was doing my research, and it seemed like there weren't really that many options, especially to try to be there at sunrise, which is at like 5:30 in the morning. So I was looking on Instagram. Shout out Instagram. I see a photo tagged of this girl at Stonehenge, and she's just glowing, radiating. I read her caption. She seems really cool. I click on her page, and she lives and travels in her van. I straight up messaged her and said, "Hi, I'm so curious about your van life and just like living in England and all the things. And also, like, I see that you've been to Stonehenge before. on solstice. I really want to come, but I don't really know how. Do you have any ideas? Or like, do you know how other people do it? And she goes, oh, you should just come with me. I was like, what? I could not believe it. And I'm thinking, nah, this can't be real. And I was like, okay, so I'm gonna fly into London and then I'm gonna take a train for 2 hours and I'm gonna meet you at 3 a.m. and we're gonna drive to Stonehenge together. Like, is that what I'm hearing you say? And she's like, yeah, let's go. We totally hit it off. We had a really great vibe. She's so cool. And that day that we met, we actually met with me, her, and her friend. The three of us together went on this whole crazy, incredible day where we found an actual crop circle. I know there's a lot of non-believers in the crop circle thing, out there. But when I tell you, I have never experienced energy like that in my life. When I was walking in the crop circle, something completely different than other places I've seen or felt or what I thought I would experience. It really truly was like an otherworldly portal of some kind. I don't even know if I have any more words to explain it other than that. Anyways, we went to multiple stone circles. We just had such a magical and aligned day. I think time just kind of stretched for us, and it was the longest day of the year, so it was already pretty long. We had a wonderful time, and we spent some time together that week in Glastonbury, and so I haven't seen her since then. And so I told her I'm coming to the UK, and she goes, oh my god, we should go on a van adventure. So she picks me up in Liverpool, and off we go to Wales. We fill up all of our water jugs at a nearby spring. Oh, it was incredible. If you've never been able to drink spring water, I also highly encourage you to try that out. There's a website called findaspring.com. It's free, and you can find all the different springs that have been documented around the world, and people will write about them. It's so much fun. I think most people chase waterfalls. I think I chase springs around the world. I am always looking on that map whenever I'm traveling somewhere to find if there's a place that I can drink water straight from the earth, because it is an incredible experience and you feel different in your body. You feel like all of your cells are alive in a new way. And if you haven't experienced it yet, I highly encourage you to if you get the chance. So off we go to Wales. I've never been to Wales, so first time for me. Absolutely beautiful, incredible. We spent the week foraging for herbs. Mugwort is in season right now, so we foraged for a lot of mugwort. We ate our weight in wild blackberries. We made smudge sticks. We talked about our lives and our dreams and our great loves and our relationships and our pets and our parents, and we truly were such a great mirror for each other. And I'm so grateful to her and her hospitality, and our communication was so on point. It was wonderful, because traveling with the wrong person, that's a difficult trip. But when you are really in sync with someone and you're like on the same wavelength, like that trip can be absolutely life-changing. And this probably ranks in one of my favorite travel experiences ever, just in the fact of how well we got along, but also how much I enjoyed the quiet and just being together and not really doing anything. We just chilled, we rested, we made cup after cup of tea. We stayed bundled up when it was cold, and we went skinny dipping in the water when it wasn't. And just let the land hold us, It also really activated a new dream in me of having my own van someday. I lived in the van life thing in 2023 with Philip. We did a huge road trip from Germany through Switzerland, France, Spain, Portugal, and all the way back. So like a huge Euro trip with a motorhome. And oh my God, that was literally my favorite summer of my life. And so being in this one was a much smaller van, more compact, but we had 2 beds. I slept up in the top, Lauren slept in the bottom. We had a fridge, a little freezer, a stovetop, lots of storage space, chairs for us to sit out on. We had a fire, and we would just go to the grocery store and stock up on food for a few days and then go back out into the wild and just be in the wild. And saw some incredible landscapes, from mountains to lakes to forests to sand dunes and white stone beaches and castle ruins. We also made a stop by the longest named train station in the world. And if you want to know what that is and how to say it, do not ask me, because I cannot begin to pronounce it. It's in Welsh, which I did not realize was its own language. I don't know why. I just didn't know that before. So I got educated on Welsh and some pronunciation tips, which was very helpful. Anyway, if you want to look it up, highly recommend, because it's about 57 letters long. And it's all one word. Very entertaining. Anyway, we really did have such a magical time. And like I said, it seemed to kind of activate this dream for me for my future of maybe having a van of my own and living part-time. You know, who knows? I'm open to the I'm open to the dream. I'm open to the opportunities flowing in as they do when the timing is right. But it really made me feel like, oh yeah, no, this is something that I want to. Which is so special when you meet people that show you a timeline that they have in their life, and it makes you go, oh, I think I want that too. Maybe that's a relationship. Maybe that's a job, or just someone's passion, their creativity, the way they listen to themselves, or the way that they speak, the way that the habits that they formed. You know, there's all different things that we can see in other people and go, wow. And either think, I'm jealous of that, I resent them for that, or holy shit, you're showing me something that I want. And if you have it and you're showing me that it's possible, then that means I could too. And that is one of my favorite ways to live. I feel like I learned, even on a deeper level, how to listen to myself, how to feel what I need. And just such an important reminder for me that I come home when I'm in nature. I come home to myself and to this beautiful planet that I get to call home. And when those are in sync, everything seems to flow a bit better. I'm not going to lie, it's been a little weird coming back from being disconnected to now I have full service on my phone. I've got full bars. I can load all the reels and all the movies and all the things that I want. And it's a little bit overstimulating being like, oh my God, I'm back in the world. I'm back taking trains and walking through cities and like ordering food and, you know, all of this. It's like really strange. Even when that has been the majority of my life is like centered around those things. You know, it's like when you have time away and you try to come back, it's like, whoa, it's a lot for the body and the spirit. But I am taking the things that I learned with me, and I am finding pockets of nature every day that I can sit in, that I can touch some plants, breathe in fresh air, set my ass down on some grass somewhere and journal to recreate the experiences that I learned on the road in my own life, to integrate them. Because that's the whole point, right? I talked about that in my travel episode of like, the whole point is that we can integrate what we've learned into our lives to make us not only better travelers, but better people, better humans, more conscious, more aware, more open-minded. Thank you so much for listening to this journey. You know, it's funny, as much as I record them for all of you, and I look forward to you hearing them and hopefully learning from my journeys, I really record them for me because I want to look back and hear my own stories in my own voice and see how far I've come and see myself evolve So this really is like a passion project of my future self, working backward in time. I just want to leave you with a few invitations. This is not homework. This is not to add pressure to your life. It's just to add some awareness that I think might be interesting. And remember that these are invitations. So the first one is, where in my life am I moving faster than I want to? And what would it feel like to give myself full permission to slow down, even just for a moment? I would also really love to encourage you to create tech-free time in your life and your day. Carve out an hour, even 10 minutes this week with your phone on airplane mode. Light a candle, do nothing, do everything. See what comes up. I love doing this in the morning as well, like not turning my phone on until I've woken up, brushed my teeth, had a cup of tea, got some sunlight in my eyes. Allow myself to be in my body before adding in external noise and voices and posts and information. Notice your nervous system. How does your body feel in silence, in stillness, in slowness? Maybe you can make a slow life list. I keep one of these on my fridge back in Mexico. And write down a few things, maybe 5 things at least, that help you come back to yourself. So on my list, I have things like reading. Pick up a book, read 1 page. That brings me back down in my nervous system so much. Brings me back into regulation. Maybe sipping tea without my phone. Walking to the ocean and just jumping in. Going to my roof and laying in the sunshine. And whenever I feel overwhelmed, I literally come back to that list and I go, okay, I'm going to pick something on the list and I'm going to go do it right now. And just a reminder, again, that you don't have to earn your rest. There were little niggly voices that came up for me sometimes on the trip that were like, you're resting when everyone else is working, and you're resting in nature when there's, a genocide going on, or you're resting when there's wild shit going on in the world and people are starving and people are without homes and people are falling apart. And you're out here eating blackberries, doing nothing. That programming is real for me too. And to that, I say, there's a difference between numbing out and tuning in. And sometimes being in nature, in our bodies, in slowness, that is my protest. Because capitalism wants us to be in urgency, right? In despair, in burnout. But I don't think that's where we are our most powerful. Because rest can be a radical act. Joy can be a reclamation. Presence feels like a soul offering. Rest is not separate from resistance. It is not a betrayal of the world, but what allows us to keep showing up for the world. So if you find yourself grappling with that inner voice, the shameful one that says, how dare you rest right now? You could ask yourself, what kind of world am I building through my rest? And what would it mean to be deeply alive and deeply awake, even when the world is burning? What does it mean to you? Remember that your joy and your rest are a part of the resistance. I know it's very backward to how we've been taught to think about things, but it really has changed my life. And if I'm believing this way and I share it with you, that's a ripple. And you share it with someone else and it ripples again. And they share it with someone else and it ripples again. And it's like from each of us, imagine the ripple effect, the butterfly effect that would flow out from our choices to not be in this state that the spirit of capitalism and patriarchy wants us to be in, right? Because nature herself is resistance. And we remember that we are her and she is us. We fall into that flow as well. And it's as natural to us as being born. It's as natural to us as evolving and growing and aging. It's beautiful. So here's to your rest. Here's to random and empowering van life adventures with people that you met on Instagram while you researched hashtags about Stonehenge. Here's to wild camping through the highlands with your lover. Here's to us. Here's to our joy. Thank you so much for listening. I wish you the most wonderful day, night, whatever time you're listening to this. And I hope that something in these stories leaves you feeling hopeful, replenished, grateful for life, and like you want to go hug a tree. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today, for listening, for sharing this space. And if today's episode spoke to something in you, please feel free to share it with a friend who you think would also resonate, and or leave a review. It helps more than you know. I'll be back next Tuesday with another episode, and until then, open heart,